My name is Pastor Tom. I'm one of the pastors here at Live, and it is great to greet you this morning. Special welcome to all the students who are making their way back or making their way the first time to either Central or Clemson or Anderson or Tri-County. Welcome, students. We're glad you're here. Let's give them a little love. To the sports teams that are back and you're already doing the two-a-days and all that kind of stuff, you are welcome as well. A number of years ago, or actually a couple years ago, President Todd Voss had this idea that maybe we could combine local church and combine the students coming back and say, hey, listen, it is very important as you come to a college or university that you find a local church to plug in and to be involved in. It's part of your education. And so I thank you, Brother Todd, for having that vision along with us. We love you and welcome you as well, although you're here every Sunday. So glad you're here. Listen, a couple things going on. I just want to kind of reiterate the small group thing. This year, one thing I'm so pumped about, we have four small groups just for college students, and we hope we have to make more because all y'all sign up. All y'all is something you'll learn in school, but that everybody will sign up, and we hope you'll be a part of that. And so come be a part of that. We have groups in there for whether you're at Clemson or whether it's SWU or wherever, just come and be a part, and you'll find out why that's so important to us as we get into the message this morning a little bit later. Lord, thank you so much for your goodness. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for these incredible people that are here. And thank you, Lord, for the opportunity we have to lift up a name that is higher than any other name. And so this morning I pray that you would help all of us, no matter where we start this journey right now. Some of us in the room, and we're here begrudgingly, we don't even believe and we're here, and just kind of tolerating all the weird things happening around. And some of us are here and we're just amped up about faith and excited about you. And wherever we are, Lord, we just ask you to meet us exactly there. Not where we should be, not what we should be doing, but where we are right now. And I just want to encourage you in the room, no matter where you are, just open your heart, lay aside what's in your mind, and say, Lord, if you're real, if you're here, speak to me today. And we ask you to honor that prayer, Lord, in your name. Amen. Well, we're in this series that recognizes we are the most sleep-deprived generation to ever exist. That is true of us. In fact, scientists are now telling us sleep deprivation is actually a national health concern. That frankly, we're just not getting any sleep. We don't sleep well. So I thought it'd be good to get some statistics in line to kind of make you aware of how much sleep you should be getting. So if you are a kid, like a baby, whatever that is, it's 16 hours or more. The kid needs to sleep 16 hours or more. If you're anywhere between 3 and 18 years old, you need, ready, 10 hours of sleep a night. If you're a cat, you get 23 and a half hours a day. That's how much you sleep. If you're 19 to 55, you're supposed to get 8 hours. And all the college students said, Okay, so you're supposed to, if you're 65 or older, you're supposed to get 6 hours. If you're over 90 years old, you can do whatever you want because you've made it this long and whatever is good for you is working. So some other statistics about sleep that are important. Listen to this. Men, we dream about other men 70% of the time, which makes all the men go, woo, you just kind of... Just keep it, I'll get on. Women, you do 50-50. 50% dream about men, 50% you dream about women. People, anybody in the room would say, Tom, I don't dream at all. So see those hands? You folks all have personality disorders, according to what it's in the Wikipedia. So it must be true. Since the invention of color television, it used to be we all dreamed in black and white. Since the invention of color television, we now actually dream, only about 12% of us dream in black and white. Now most of us are dreaming in color. Listen to this. 1 in 4 married couples sleep in separate beds. Why? Why did you get married to start? Anyway, no, I don't want to move on. This is also true. Giraffes are one of the shortest sleeping mammals, with a total of 1.9 hours a day, usually in 5 to 10 minute intervals, and scientists have concluded it's because they have a difficult time finding a place to sleep, and it's such a pain in the neck. There you go, that's right, you're welcome about that part. Yeah, it's just a preacher joke, it's just for you. It's just for you. If you want these statistics and you're interested in some more, you can actually get the church app. The church app is Alive Wesleyan. You can download it for Droid or iPhone, whatever you got, and you can follow along with the message this morning and all that kinds of stuff. Listen, it'll take you 2 weeks to starve to death, somewhere around 10 days to die of sleep deprivation. Within 5 minutes of waking up, we forget 50% of what we dreamed about. Within 10 minutes, we forget 90% of what we dreamed about. They found the exact same thing happens when people listen to a sermon and walk out those doors. Within 5 minutes. Well, despite the invention of the sleep number bed, and despite the whole room darkening shades and the noise-making machines, that's all kind of we're all trying to do. The fact is, we're not sleeping well. So in this series, for the next, I think we got 2 or 3 more weeks left, we're looking at what's keeping us awake at night and what does the Bible have to say about all that and why aren't we sleeping? We've talked about family issues. We've talked about purpose for one's life. And today, I have the high honor of talking to you about this word right here. And the word is chronophobia. Now, if you have any understanding of Latin, Greek kind of root words, you understand that this is actually the compilation of 2 words. Chronos is time, phobia is fear. And so what chronophobia is this. It's an irrational fear of the future. It's an irrational fear of the future. The chronophobia is very common amongst prison inmates and the elderly. So I thought it would obviously be relevant to this crowd. Now listen, I get this. For me, I've had to stop watching the news at night. I've had to stop kind of reading up on the headlines before I go to bed at night because it disturbs my soul. To see ISIS beheading someone, come on, are you kidding me? For their beliefs, or I've watched them throw people off a building because of sexual orientation, that disturbs my soul. To watch racial tensions and tensions with the police force escalate across the country is disconcerting. Man, to read about politics before I go to bed. Have you seen who's running for president? On either side. We got one over here and she can't keep track of her email. You got another one over here who can't find a decent barber. They're all crazy. They're all crazy. And it's just, frankly, it's interrupting our sleep. So here's what I've learned. We all have this adversity. Everybody in the room has this adversity to change, especially change that we don't control. I can handle change if I'm the one in control, but chronophobia is the result of uncertainty about that change. And the reason I bring this to you today is this. Heading off to college or to university and rooming with new people is change. Sharing a bar of soap with complete strangers is change. Embracing a new community is change. Going to chapel twice a week because you all are soft. Because I had to go 4 times a week. I'm getting ready to drop a kid off at college next week, and as a parent, I don't even want to think about that. That's change. And sometimes the change is more intense, and you can relate to this as well. Some of you have been part of a home or maybe are part of a relationship in which kind of the change centers on the marriage and the whole family's being impacted because I do has suddenly become I don't any longer. And that's change, and it makes us afraid for the future. Some of you have a new job or maybe a new community that you're joining, and it's its own set of stresses on you. Will the new community like me? Will I like my new job? How will the kids do? It's change. And many of us in the room have faced the ultimate change. You know what the number 1 fear that people have? Public speaking. You know the number 2 fear? Death. Number 3 is dying while public speaking. Interestingly enough, I'm just saying, isn't it? So here's the deal. Many of us in the room have actually walked away from this crazy thing called a graveside that we never anticipated being part of our lives so soon. And we've seen dirt poured over someone we love. That's a change. And it scares us. And so basically what I've come to conclude is this. Our only guarantee about the future is this. The future is going to be different than it is today. Heraclitus, a Greek philosopher, said this. No man ever steps in the same river twice. For it's not the same river and he's not the same man. Now, I realize so far I haven't helped anybody with their insomnia unless you've dozed off, which is okay. That's all right if it's a dark room and soft chair. And frankly, Tom, you're not that exciting. Go ahead and doze off. It could be a good spiritual thing for you. Some of you might be surprised to know this. The Bible actually has something to say about the topic. The Scripture actually has something to say about chronophobia, and the disciples they actually had this. There could be a case study in chronophobia. Jesus is crucified and he's resurrected. He walks around the earth for a while, and then something happens called the ascension. The ascension, you can read about it at the end of Luke chapter 24. And the ascension is when Jesus he floats up, and he goes back to heaven. And you can just read it and put your own visuals on it kind of thing. And so as that's happening, the disciples are basically freaked out. Think about this. Just think about this, even if you don't believe. But the disciples had been following Jesus for 3 years. They had left their livelihood. So you can't go back to a job 3 years later. And so they'd walked away from fishing or doctoring or tax collecting or whatever it was they did. They walked away from that 3 years ago, and then Jesus says, hey, guess what? I'm getting ready to bust out of here. I'm getting ready to leave. And when the disciples hear this, they sort of go into freak out mode, and chronophobia starts settling down. And everything we read in the Gospels indicates the disciples didn't have a clue what Jesus was about almost till Jesus left. This is John 14. Jesus is trying to prepare them. He says to them, hey, listen, y'all, don't let your hearts be troubled. Don't be worrying, because trust in God, trust in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it weren't so, I would have told you. And then he says this, I'm going there to prepare a place for you. And the disciples kind of went ballistic. They're like, what? You're leaving? You're leaving us? You're going somewhere else? And Philip and Thomas and all these guys had these doubts, and you can read about that in John 14. Here, Jesus leaving is causing all kinds of future angst and anguish and anxiety for the disciples. The chronophobia is settling in. They've been with this guy constantly now for 3 years. They had left everything to be part of him. They were going to join him in the movement. They were going to do this together. They were going to rule. But now he says he's leaving. But you know who wasn't anxious about the future? And who isn't anxious about the future today? Well, see, 99% of the time when a pastor asks that question in church, the right answer is going to be Jesus. And that would be the right answer again today. That is Jesus. So just use Jesus. I mean, if your professor says Jesus is wrong, that's on him or her. I'm just saying. I'm not going to say that. But it's Jesus. So really, it's the same reason that we don't have to be anxious at all. The difference between Jesus and me, the difference between Jesus and some of you, is really how much we believe this next statement. Jesus wasn't anxious because he understood God has a plan and he has a power to pull that plan off. That's the thing. That's kind of the nitty-gritty, chewy chocolate center of the whole deal related to chronophobia. Do you believe, and how strongly do you believe, God has a plan and he has the power to pull that plan off? And as the disciples were facing their most uncertain time, as chronophobia was maxing out, as they were facing this scary future filled with more questions than answers, Jesus has a word for them. And the word is actually found in Acts chapter 1. Acts is kind of this book in the Bible that talks about the Acts of the Apostles. But right before we get into the Acts of the Apostles, Jesus has some lines in the first chapter. And in the first chapter, right before he leaves, he says to the disciples these words, "You will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you. And you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth," which we know is 6 miles. And the disciples are all gathered in Jerusalem when Jesus says these words to them. And he says basically this, listen, I know you're scared about the future. I know you're a little freaked out. I know there are days of uncertainty for you today, but lean in real close because this is what I want you to hear. I have a plan. And my plan begins with where you are right now, Jerusalem. And this is so comforting to me because I sometimes get the feeling that I can be part of God's plan once I get things straightened out in my life. So God, you've got a plan, but once I can really start believing like all the people I see on Sunday, then I'll use your plan. Or God, I can be a plan, but I want to get through college and do whatever college holds, then I'm going to embrace your plan. But Jesus didn't say his plan begins when one's life gets straightened out. He says to the disciples who are in Jerusalem, I have a plan, and it starts with what's going to happen in Jerusalem. It starts right now. He didn't say his plan begins when we make something right. He said, no, it's going to begin right now. He didn't say his plan begins when we graduate. He said, no, the plan's going to start right now. He didn't say his plan begins when you get a clean bill of health from your doctor. No. My plan's happening right now. He didn't say his plan begin when you have a child or when you get married. No. My plan is right now in Jerusalem. He didn't say a plan begins when you can break your addiction. No. My plan's starting right now. My plan begins right now, even while you're in Jerusalem. Even while you're where you are, like when you came in here this morning, even when you're ill, even when you're grieving, even when you're insecure, even when you're afraid, even when you're lonely, even when you embark on a brand new adventure, God says, I've got a plan, and it starts right now. This is my plan. Listen up. Incidentally, do you know what the plan was for the disciples in Acts chapter 1, verse 8? Do you know what the plan was? The plan, as they were facing an uncertain future, the plan Jesus was talking about, get this, it was this. The plan Jesus was talking about was the local church that carried the message, it's the hope of the world. And the disciples, when he was talking to them about this, said, I have a plan. That was the local church, that we would carry the message of hope for the world. It's why we do this event, to make sure you understand that as you enroll in your classes and enroll in whatever university, you don't neglect the hope for the world, which is the local church. The plan was in many ways alive in the amazing churches that all of you may have left to actually come to be part of this community and that are around the states and around the world. The plan was the local church that Jesus was talking about. Now, it's one thing to have a plan, but come on, isn't it true that it's a whole separate thing to actually have the ability to pull that plan off? Look again, Jesus said, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you. I love the word power. It's a strong word. The word's actually dunamis is what the Greek word is, and it means the potential to exert force. It's the root word that we use to form our word dynamite. And so sometimes when we see the word power, we don't catch the full meaning of it. So I thought we'd throw dynamite in there just to kind of get a kind of a glimpse into it. Here's what it says. You will receive dynamite power when the Holy Spirit comes on you. So, in the face of chronophobia, fear of the future, an uncertain future, God has this plan, and apparently God has some kind of power. And his power came through a promise, who is the person of the Holy Spirit. So here's what I want you to understand, whether your experience is the same or not. That same Spirit abides in each and every one of us who believe. It's not like a special spirit for Bible people that make it to a flannel graph board, you know what I'm saying? It's not that. These are ordinary men and women, young and old, just like us. And God said, I have the plan, and I'm going to put the person of the Holy Spirit who will bring the dynamite power. So here's the question all this has led to. I wonder how the plan and power of God in us might change everything for us. Fair? I mean, if it's real, I wonder how it might change. Because once the disciples believed this, things were never the same. In fact, the next few chapters, you can go home and read. It's the birth of the church and the carriers of the message of hope for the world. And we don't just hear the challenge, but we actually get to see how this played out in the lives of these disciples. And just think about this. Today we parked, some of you had to park in grass to get here. That day there were 12 people who heard God's plan and God's power and received his power. And as a result of those 12 people, you all are gathered in this room. Can you imagine, and if a room full of people this size caught that kind of power, what it would do to the world? Can you imagine if we lived with that kind of confidence and that kind of plan, what it would do to our communities and to our campuses, maybe even to the country? Could you imagine? Because this happened with only 12 people. I'm the only one excited in the room. And I've done this 3 times now, and I really could use some help. So if you all could just be happy a little bit, it'd be good. I'll give lunch for you. Okay, thank you. It feels cheap now that I had to ask for it, you know? That's all right. I don't mind it being cheap. Keep doing that. It's fine. Now listen. When a group of people lives as if God had a plan and then puts the power to pull off his plan, everything changes. When the disciples got a hold of that truth, their lives became characterized in a whole different way. And I can hear what you're saying. Tom, how do I know what God's plan is for me? And the Bible has a word for that. Shut up. Come on, are you kidding me? You know what God's plan is for you. It's not a big mystery. Everybody's waiting for a burning bush or a lightning bolt or a star to come and sit on their head or something. Listen, God's plan is already clear. He may tweak you along the way. Don't misunderstand me, but there's no reason that we cannot act on God's plan right now. Tom, what is that? What is God's plan? Just do what the disciples did when Jesus spoke to them. What did that look like? I'm glad you asked, because here's what the disciples did. You ready? Everybody's got this plan for their lives, and here's the first thing. These people, these disciples, our forefathers and foremothers, they got crazy about chasing God. They absolutely went nuts about chasing God. They were freaky. They were weird. But the reason was God wasn't a sideshow. God was everything. God wasn't something you did in chapel. God is something you did when you got out of bed. God wasn't something that just happened on a Sunday. God was every day of the week. And they were so confident in God's plan and God's power that they chased God and wanted everybody to know it. Here's what they said. Those who accepted his message were baptized, and about 3,000 numbers were added to the number that day. This was the birth of the church. Now listen, we think about baptism today, and it's going to be a nice little fountain out here, and we're going to dunk you over that. Listen, in that day, they're in Jerusalem. They had just seen Jesus crucified and suffered and carrying the cross and beaten and whipped in the blood. They had just seen that. And 3,000 people heard the plan of God. And 3,000 people that day said, you know what? I don't care what it means. I'm going public in this faith because I believe in the plan and I believe in the power of Jesus Christ. And so 3,000 people in Jerusalem walked to the edge of the water and said, I too am crucified with Christ. And that kind of commitment changed the world. Here's the ticker. You have that power in you. You do. If we would stop apologizing for being Christian. If we would just stop apologizing for being Christian. Don't ever apologize for being a man or woman leading a life on the Word of God. Yes, we can argue about how to interpret the Word, but lead a life on the Word. Lead a life on the Word. And it will change their community. So these folks chased God, and that was the birth of the church, and they threw caution to the wind in this very tumultuous time in history. They stepped into baptism waters and said, this may mean personal harm. It may mean harm for my children. It may mean harm in my marriage and my family. I don't care. I have to be part of the plan. I have to be part of the plan of Jesus Christ. And so they did. These folks you will meet one day in heaven. You will meet the original 3,000. And you will look them in the eye and you will tell them, I'm here because of you. I'm here because you stepped out in faith. And I lived in a generation that was afraid to. Baptism is the way you tell the world, I am so aligned with God's plan and God's power You tell the whole world, and on this day our forefathers and foremothers in the faith courageously stepped into the water and said, I am one who's been redeemed. I'm sorry if that offends you. Get over it. I think we could use a pretty good dose of that today. Some of you, your next step in your spiritual journey is to be baptized. Not like it's going to be cute, like do it in the fountain, somebody take a picture. No. I'm talking about being baptized into the movement of Jesus Christ, where you go public and you say, I am a new man, I'm a new woman. And you've been holding out because you're afraid of what the team's going to say. You're afraid of what the room's going to say. You're afraid of what family's going to say. It's time for you to swallow the fear and embrace the power and the plan of Jesus Christ. And so if you want to do that, you get the app, you get the website, you can download and send us. We have a baptism at the end of September. We do it then because it's really cold. And we want to make sure that it all gets frozen out of us, whatever's there. But can you imagine, the pastor with the biggest biceps in history baptized 3,000 people that day, you know. Not only did they chase God, here's something else that I think's kind of messing with us. And that's this, man. They valued community. Now, I'm not talking about just some kind of, oh, cute, let's go to church together. No, I'm talking about these people understood that the community was one of the most priceless things they have. The world, listen, has never seen anything like this since Acts chapter 2. We've never even come close to it. Here's what it says. Those people devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, breaking of bread, and prayer. All the believers were together, had everything in common, and every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. Here's my question. Why is it a church that was under persecution, that had just lost their Savior and Redeemer, why is it that church didn't have to have a small group campaign? They naturally did it. And why is it we have to beg people to be part of small groups? Here's why, friends. Listen, it's because we have lost the value of community. Facebook doesn't replace this kind of community. See, the value of community is this. When my life hits the fan, and all of our lives will, when my life hits the fan, I grab my brother Charlie and I say, hey, Charlie, you're my brother. And Charlie says, Tom, God has a plan and God has the power. And when the diagnosis comes or the injury happens, hey, listen, God has a plan and God has the power. When you are alone and the breakup has happened, you all get in a room and you pray and you read Scripture. Listen, God has a plan and God has a power. Don't worry about you feel. God has a plan and God has a power. And we've sold our entire lives out to that. So you stay strong, and when you're weak, Tom, I'm going to grab you. I'm going to hold you up. When I'm weak, I'm going to hold you. When you're weak, I'm going to hold you. That's kind of what this whole thing is. It's not some fly-by-night. Now listen, who wouldn't want to be part of a community like that? Who wouldn't want to be part of a church like that? Who wouldn't want to be part of a campus or a dorm room like that? Where even people that aren't believers heard how we're doing community and the way we value one another and the way we didn't tolerate people talking junk about each other. And we said, you know what? I want to be part of that dorm, that room, that campus, that church, because whatever they're doing about community, it's the most real thing I've ever seen. Who wouldn't want to be part of that? Here's the thing. Whether or not we have that rests solely in your hand. It's solely in your hands. Why is it that our forefathers had this and we don't? What's happened? Well, it's a warning because I've been around the church a while. I've been around Christian people for a while, and we can look like Christians and smell like something else sometimes. This will take power because what happens is people get political and people get mean. And people say things that hurt other people, even great Christian people. But if we are willing to fight, if we're willing to hold this standard high, if we're willing to call sin, sin, if we had this kind of community, it would change the world. And people would start coming to the school you're a part of or start coming to the church you're a part of because of the community And they would say, I don't know what kind of education, I don't know if I even like Tom, but I sure do love the way they do community. One last thing, and it's this. If you read this scripture, these people, this first church, man, they chased God and they valued community and they absolutely unleashed generosity. I mean, these people were insane. Just a couple chapters later, chapter 4, this is what they said. There was no needy person among them. Let me tell you something. If you are waiting for the government to fix the needs of people, you are barking up the wrong tree. It is the responsibility of the Church of Jesus Christ. What will that mean? Well, what will that mean? Here's what it'll mean. Now let's see if we clap. But what it'll mean is the Church of Jesus Christ is going to have to start remembering that the tithe is something God has called us to. It's in the Scripture. It's never been removed. It's never taken out. And yes, it's in the New Testament too. And for some reason, we all sit in a room like this, and we all sit on our wallet tighter and tighter and tighter, and we don't even honor God with the minimal amount of tithe. And then we get mad when the Church of Jesus Christ can't meet the needs of people, and we expect the government's going to do it, and they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it because we have different plan, and we have the different power. There are no needy persons among them, for from time to time, listen to this. Those who owned lands or houses sold them, and they brought the money from the sales and put it at the apostles' feet, and it was distributed to anyone as he had need, and I so love it. It wasn't put to a salary. It wasn't put to a building. It was given to people that have needs. I've been in ministry for a long time, and I have never had this happen to me. Why? Where did we get so stingy? Why did we stop believing? Did we break trust along the way? People were so committed to God's plan and believed in the power that He would prompt their hearts in a setting like this. And He would prompt their hearts to some extraordinary act of generosity and say, you know what? You should meet that need. You should take care of that. And the people in the room would say, okay, I'll do it. Well, what about your retirement? I don't know. But you got plan, you got power, I'll give it up. But those people don't have any food. So give what you have so they can have food. Get off your comfort zone and whatever it is you're trusting in, and trust in me, God said. And those people did it. Can you imagine now you hearing of a community like a church or a campus or a dorm and just said, you know what? 5 people sold their second home and gave it to the church. You know what the church is doing? They're feeding the hungry kids in their county. I would love to be part of a body like that. Wouldn't you? Come on. Wouldn't it be cool to be part of a body like that? They lived with that kind of faith and that kind of belief, and to be quite honest, that challenges me at the very core of who I am. Well, here's kind of where I've settled on this whole chronophobia, at least my personal chronophobia, and I have it too. I've learned that I cannot control all of the future. And neither can you. But I can control some of it. And I've made a choice to focus on that which I can control. I've been given a life. It's only one life. It's all I have. But in this life, I can be a husband that's chasing God, that values my marriage, and is incredibly generous. I can be a father that teaches my children, the next movement leaders, chase God, kid. Value community. Don't ever throw it away. And be incredibly, weirdly, radically generous. I can be a friend, and I can be a pastor who leads a life that pursues God, builds community, and unleashes generosity. And here's the thing. If you agree, only if you agree, if you say, you know what, Tom, that sounds like it's in the Bible, you can be that person too. No matter your team, no matter your environment, no matter your history, you can be that person too. True, I can't control cancer. I can't control choices people make. I can't control what's happened in my past. I can't control a whole lot of what happens in the future. I can't control the stock market. I can't control what my neighbors does. I can't control, or do, whatever it is. I can't control my kids. I can't control your kids. But I can pursue God with reckless abandonment. And I can value you and I doing life together, and I can be extraordinarily generous. And the best part is, listen, this is God's plan. And He has given each and every one of us the power to live out that plan. Yes, you. He's given you the power to live out that plan. You don't have to suffer because of chronophobia. Here's the question: how would things change for me? If at my core, it's moved from here to here. If at the core of who I am, I believed God had a plan, and He had given me the power to see that plan through, how would it change for you? Some of you are meant to change the world, and whether or not you do it is totally dependent on whether or not you believe in God's plan and God's power. So are you living after God? Questions I wrote down this week after messing with the message all week. Are you living the kind of life that is chasing after God? That's just yes or no. For me, listen, I've felt some conviction about this. And what I mean by that is I've sort of settled in some routines. And, it's more than just a Max Lucado book on my nightstand or trying to read Scripture till I fall asleep. This is chasing after God. This is saying, God, you're the number one passion in my life. Are you doing that? Have you gone public in your faith? Is it time for you to sign up to be baptized? Do it. How about the community? Are you destroying it with your words, or do you need to make kind of some things right? Are you valuing it, or is it kind of... And has God ever spoken to you about an act of service or an act of financial gift, some act of generosity, and you said no because it sounded too intense or because you were more aware of your shortcomings in God's plan and God's power? It's that simple. You decide this. You decide, I am glad to be in community with you. And I'm just crazy enough to believe, listen, if we nailed this, everything changes. If you would get on board and I would get on board, teams all together would have, if we nailed this, not just our community and our country, our state, I'm talking about everything changes. And I'd love to be part of that with you.